All the headlines seem to be about the popularity of electric medium SUVs these days and not really the small SUVs. But up until now, no medium electric SUV has really been good enough to clearly stand out, even the Tesla Model Y and even the Hyundai Ioniq 5. So what we have here are cars that are essentially on the cusp. These two cars here, the BYD Atto 3 and the all-new MG S5 EV, which replaces the old ZS EV, are both classed as medium SUVs, even though they're under 4.5 meters long. While Kia's all-new EV3, which is only 4,300 millimeters long, is considered a small SUV. But I think these three cars are exact competitors to each other, and unlike the medium electric SUVs that we've been a little bit critical about, these three EVs here are actually really suave and really find a great sweet spot, as we shall discover. So here we have BYD Atto 3 Premium, MG S5 Essence, and Kia EV3 Air Standard Range. I'm Nathan Ponchard, and this is Chasing Cars.
Chasing Cars, honest reviews of your next car.
Brought to you by
Budget Direct.
If size matters, then it works in favour for the Kia, because this is the shortest car here at 4,300 millimeters long, but it also has the largest boot at 460 litres, which is really well packaged, and it is the only one of the three with a frunk, which is also 25 litres. So this, in terms of its boxy shape, its retro futurism, and its overall package, proves that small electric SUVs can be very smart and more suave than the medium ones I've already slightly bagged out. The MG S5 EV and the BYD Atto 3 are longer than it, 44.76 millimeters long, 44.55 millimeters long. But what brings these three cars together is the actual similarities between the three. We have 48,990 drive away for the base model Air Standard Range, 47,990 drive away for the top spec Essence big battery, and 48,319 in New South Wales for the top spec BYD Premium. So it just throws these three together. Even their distances, 436 kilometers WLTP, 425, 420. We've got 150 kilowatts here, 125 here, and 150 here. They're all very similar to each other, but a couple of things do stand out. Firstly, the Kia's packaging, like I pointed out. The MG is the only one of the three to actually have its charging port on this side. So where these poles are starting to pop up in the city where you charge, it's the only one that can actually have the charger linked on the curbside and doesn't have to have a cord stretched over the car. And finally, to the BYD, even though it's been finessed over time, the one thing where it starts to show its age is in its charging time. 10 to 80% in 36 minutes, where we've got 28 minutes and 29 minutes. And then there's the styling. The BYD is very conservative on the outside, and as we shall see when we get in it, completely mismatching from what it looks like inside. And even though it's had a bit of a tizzy up, it's got new alloys for 2025, it's got some pretty cool lighting and all that sort of stuff. This very mid-90s Holden Commodore Surf Blue is meant to be the premium colour, and it's only one of four. The MG has a lot more colours, and I love this champagne gold metallic here. It's a little bit like a sparkly mid-century beige. It looks surprisingly handsome and way better than the ZS it replaces, and a lot more modern than the BYD. But it's the Kia here, the shortest, boxiest. It is so clearly a car of the future, and it comes in 8 colours, and among those is terracotta orange and the minty green. So if you want something that really fits a design ethos, the BYD is about other things, and I think the Kia is very much front and center when it comes to style. One of the coolest things about these three EVs though is how good they look from the back end and what they hide inside. The EV3 looks like an EV5, only pretty and actually nicely proportioned. Its bum is so much more handsome, and inside here we have a dual level floor and 460 litres of boot space in what is a pretty small vehicle. From behind, the MG S5 looks really distinctive. It is so much more handsome than pretty much any other SUV-shaped MG, and in here we have a 453 litre boot, though like the Kia, there is no spare wheel. There is also no spare wheel in the BYD Atto 3. We have 440 litres in here, but the best thing about the BYD is that it makes up for its conservative design with these cool light bands front and back, and it no longer has "Build Your Dreams" spelled out on its rear tailgate. For anyone who has spent any time inside an MG4 and even the new generation MGHS, this MGS5 is just next level. It's so much nicer than the new HS inside that car feels like a cheap, superficial luxury car, whereas this is surprisingly nice and surprisingly sumptuous when you get inside. This is the black interior, even though it has a lot of milky grey, but just having different complementary textures, like a grey here with a mock carbon fibre in here and sort of this grey tweedy seat section, admittedly with a vinyl strip right down where your bum crack goes, so you've got a little bit of sweat happening on the vinyl here, even though you've got cloth on the outside, but they're trying, and it's just not all fake leather, which is just vinyl. Everything kind of has a little bit of a sheen to it. The little fluffy bits here for your wireless charging. The steering wheel, same as in the MG4, really nice to hold. Wireless app connect that happens instantaneously. And this 12.8-inch screen, so much better than any screen ever in any MG sold in Australia. It works well, it's quick. It even has a cheat sheet where you can drag from the top and bring buttons down. And the greatest of all, which we will discover when we drive it, is that it has an MG Pilot custom button where you can program in your own active safety settings, so when you get in the car and hit it, you can instantly turn off the speed limit alert, the lane departure warning, all of the other things, the driver distraction monitoring, all the things that are distracting and annoying can be instantly mitigated in one button. That is a huge step forward for a Chinese EV, just like the interior in here. And even the functionality, proper door grips, we can easily fit a full bottle in the door here, just stuff like that. We've got a full glass roof with an electric blind and an opening sunroof. And I think it's little things like that where these smallish SUVs are so much better than their sort of egg-shaped medium EVs that just have glass roofs that don't open. It makes this car surprisingly luxurious for an MG and really, really compelling. The MG's wheelbase is 50 millimeters longer than the Kia's, and you can feel a little bit of that in the back seat, even though the difference in room isn't really that much. The cushion in the rear bench is a little bit deeper, so you sit more into the seat, even though you've still got a lot of vinyl to sit on here. It is really nicely stitched and really nicely made. Where the difference is looking forward is that I've got a great view around the seat in front of me because it's adjustable up and down, whereas the front passenger seat doesn't have height adjustment, just like in the BYD. So it sits up and sort of in the face of the person behind them. It only has one USB-C port and the door is a little bit harder to get a bottle in, but the rest of it is all pretty similar. And just this two-tone colouring and the glassiness of the roof makes it a really nice place to be. Once again, the nicest MG SUV to sit in so far. While the BYD is 3 years old and we have got used to this design, it's still the bravest of the three cars here when it comes to its styling and the way it's put together. It generally revolves around this sort of wave shape on the dash and into the doors. It's all meant to be pretty organic. I find it slightly nauseating. The main attention-grabbing thing though is the 15.6-inch screen, which is larger in the premium version of this car. It can be in portrait or in landscape, but if you want it to have Apple CarPlay, it will only display that in the landscape position. Like the other two cars, it does have wireless smartphone connect, and it does that quickly and reliably, just like the Kia and the MG. And that is not an expectation in a new car. So there's no glitching there. They all have wireless charging, but the Atto 3 Premium has an 8-speaker stereo, so 2 more speakers, and absolutely the strongest audio quality of the three. This is the audiophile's car, and that's a good point to lift off from because it still has its 3 red guitar strings on the doors. You can actually play a little tune with it, which is kind of cute, but also could be extremely annoying if your children want to play with that all the time. And the door storage, while it is sort of okay, it isn't quite as generous as the others. You do have to wedge stuff, especially in the back seat. In this premium version here, we have the blue and cream interior. We don't have the black and grey one. And I think this is probably the one to go for. It's not going to be to everyone's tastes. These seats are all vinyl. They do have heating, but no ventilation. This seat, like the MG, has no height adjustment. Only the Kia has that. although they are all electric in the front. Like the MG, we have a panoramic sunroof, though with the shape of the BYD, it starts further back. It's more raked in the windscreen, so you don't get quite as much of an airy feeling in the car. And the driving position, while the seat is really quite good, especially in the backrest, the steering wheel has a little bit of a bus tilt, just like in the C-Line 7, so it does give it a slightly odd feeling, and especially with this flat bottom here, not my favorite either, but all of this challenging design actually works quite well when you get to know it, and then it becomes completely second nature and effortless. This is a surprisingly easy car to live with interior-wise, even though when you look at it, you kind of want to run. 10mm shorter wheelbase than the MG, but a similar amount of room in the back of the BYD. The seat is longer in the cushion, but also flatter, so you don't have as much under thigh support. I think the quality of the trim, certainly on the backs of these front seats here, is a little bit higher, a little bit more premium. It does have 2 phone holders on both sides, which the other cars do not have. It's also the only one to give you a USB-A option as well as a USB-C in the back, but otherwise it's all much of a muchness. It feels a little bit smaller than the MG, with a little bit less panoramic roof-wise, but still fairly glassy and nice. You do have a pretty good vision, although again, the front seat passenger's seat is higher up and in your vision a little bit, and it is harder to wedge bottles in the doors than the other two. The Kia's interesting geometric design continues on the inside, and it has a whole bunch of surprise and delight things that are around, given that we're in the base model Air here, that you wouldn't think that it would normally have. Things like having height adjustable front seats for both seats, even though they're manual. I love the fact that they're all cloth here, so it doesn't really matter that you don't have heating in this model. The next model up has heating and cooling. Even both of these front seats have these little click forward headrests where you can actually rest your head while you're driving for both of them, which is pretty cool. And just the general two-tone layout of this interior. This is all plastic, and I'm sure much of it also has some Enviro credential, but the thing about it is that even though it's all pretty hard, it is all really beautifully made, beautifully put together, lovely finishes. Even this ribbon of plastic chrome on the door here looks fantastic. The storage is really good, the doors take decent sized bottles, and if they don't fit it, you can fit them in this tray in here. There's this cool little light blue colouring here. We have standard wireless charging. All that sort of stuff works extremely well. It's funny though that it has two 12.3-inch screens, and this touchscreen in the middle here seems kind of small because it's actually so much smaller than the ones in the two other Chinese EVs. But again, it works really well. Standard 6-speaker stereo. The middling of the two, stronger than the MG, not quite as good as the BYD, but still, again, really, really good and really comfortable and polished for a base model. But where this base model EV3 really does elevate itself, literally, is that this rear bench is higher than the front. We have full theatre seating here, a beautiful view over both front seats here, and everyone gets the same thing. 2 map pockets, 2 USB-Cs, 2 air vents, completely flat floor, decent storage in the door, really quite comfortable seat, decent leg and toe room, fold down armrest in the middle, and again, all of that beautiful trim with these little coloured highlights. It just has this cohesion that makes it feel like it's actually a premium brand car. While all three EVs share the same 8-year, 160,000 kilometre battery warranty, their general warranties are quite different. The BYD's is the shortest at 6 years or 150,000. The MG's is 10 years or 250,000 kilometres, and the Kia's is 7 years or unlimited kilometres. When it comes to pricing and scheduled servicing, the numbers are on your screen in front of you. While the MG S5 shares with the MG4 its rotary dial here for starting, and the fact that you can't really turn it off and lock it and everything unless you actually get out and physically do it. It does not have a start-stop button, but you do get used to that. What is more important is that it shares the platform with the MG4, and this here is a rear drive little wagon for the first time, certainly in something of this size, since probably the BMW E46 3 Series Touring. And what that comparison really is trying to highlight is that there's a cohesiveness and a rear-driven sort of sweetness to the way the MG S5 drives that is so far removed from the MG ZS EV that it replaces that they're just not even worth thinking about in the same stratosphere. They are completely different, and we can only be thankful for that. This is just like an MG4 with a wagon body, and really that's all that anyone ever wanted. Where it actually does succeed in being a better car than the MG4, in my opinion, is that it gets rid of that sort of vertical motion in the ride of the MG4 on lumpy sorts of roads. It's still quite knobbly. You can even feel it here on this little surface here. It isn't as plush as the EV3 around town. It doesn't have that refined plushness, but it isn't unrefined. It's just sporty. The steering continues that flavour. It's really sharp off centre, like it really moves there, but it's not nervous. It just gives it this light, crisp keenness that really matches with the chassis of the car. And the tyres too, they have this really nice level of grip, even in these really challenging weather conditions that we've been testing these cars in. It's really quite confidence inspiring, and the fact that it's a rear-wheel drive wagon with all that electric vehicle torque, although it does only have 250 Newton meters, is nothing to be afraid of, because the ESC is really on its game and really keeps the MG in line. Where it does fall down a bit compared to its competitors is that it just doesn't have the torque of the other two. It's 25 kilowatts shy of the BYD and the Kia, but the torque, 250 Newton meters versus 283 in the Kia and 310 in the BYD, just means that it lags a little bit. Its drivability when you're driving around, like here, putting my foot down, is effortless and easy, certainly compared to an ICE car, I suppose, but from an EV perspective, and certainly from what this chassis is capable of, 8.6 seconds 0 to 100 for this big battery Essence rear drive is just a little bit behind the 7.3 claim for the BYD and 7.5 for the Kia. That said, any complaints about the performance here in the MG S5 really are kind of irrelevant, because what matters here is the cohesion of this whole car, from the way that it makes you feel when you sit in it, from the communication and the crispness from when you drive it, from the vision out of the car, the quality in the car, the massively better touchscreen, the really quite good one-pedal drive, again that's massively improved. The active safety systems work really mostly unobtrusive here, and then with that MG Pilot custom mode where you just hit one button and it chooses your own settings and what you want on or off, that is probably a game changer for MG. So while the MG4 has so far stood apart from the rest of the models in its range, I think the MG S5 is probably the one that really deserves to get the attention. This is so much better than the also relatively new MG HS medium SUV with a combustion engine that it's just not even in the same league. It is so much better. Even the efficiency here, the Kia used less kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, but because the MG has the biggest battery here, its real world range in our really challenging driving is 341 kilometers, and its WLTP is 425. And so while that isn't heaps, it's still more than doable. Even its charging, 10 to 80% in 28 minutes. That's on its game too. It's really hard to find an area where the MG S5 actually isn't really likable. Its stereo may not be as good as the other two, but it's still entirely acceptable, and just the way that you feel when you drive this car, I think, is something that would just be effortlessly enjoyable for anyone who is willing to give another MG a chance, because a lot of the other cars in MG stable are not worth considering. Arguably the first thing you notice about the Atto 3 is that BYD has moved the indicator stalk to the right hand side for right hand drive, just like Kia has, but unlike MG. The second thing is that if you've ever driven the Atto 3 in the past, there's something about the 2025 model that just makes it tangibly better. I think, and I suspect the main reason is the tyres. It no longer has these Chinese-made Batman tyres that were just terrible. It now has 235/50 R18 Continental Eco Contact 6. And Continental are a pretty good quality tyre, and they feel really good in this car. Through corners, even just here, there's a tangible sense of poise in the Atto 3 that is really, really likeable. In the past, it had a degree of dynamics that was probably beyond what you expected, but the tyres killed it. Whereas now it is allowed to shine. And in the terrible road conditions that we've had on this drive, extreme rain, extreme wetness, filthy roads, it is surprisingly puntable and safe. No real annoying intrusion of the safety systems, a reasonably good ride, nicely damped, and even the steering, it's become consistent. It has comfort or sport. I just generally drive it in comfort. There's a consistency to its weighting and the way that it behaves that makes the Atto 3 easily livable. Although you did just hear the wipers, that they've been doing that the whole time, even though it's been in rain for days. It's still like that, probably just this car. The rest of the driving experience, the drivetrain is reasonably strong. BYD claims 7.3 0 to 100, which is the fastest of this crew here, slightly quicker than the Kia, but you can flatten it from a standing start like this, and it seems to have pretty good grip from the front end. It doesn't scrabble as much as the Kia does, probably because it has quite a bit wider tyres. The driving position is really strong, even though the seat doesn't have a ton of adjustment. It's only 6-way electric. Your shin does sort of bump into the side of this bit here, but for the most part, I don't even notice the challenging design of the interior. I just find that the BYD just lopes along calmly and inoffensively and is surprisingly good at what it does. Where it falls down a little bit is the charging. Like we mentioned at the beginning, it's 36 minutes against under 30 for its rivals. It has more road noise than its rivals and is noisier on almost all surfaces, but it isn't bad, it just isn't as refined as its newer competitors. And then there's the regenerative braking, which just isn't as strong as the others. I've got this in sport and on high. There's two different settings. The main switch is down here for high and standard, and it's just not enough. I feel like it could actually really enhance the dynamics and perhaps even the car's energy efficiency. It was the thirstiest car on test. It used 18.7 kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers, but because of the battery size, that gave it a sort of a real-world range on our really challenging roads of 323 kilometers, which is in between the other two, although they are all still really close. The thing and the takeaway of this, though, is that if you think that the BYD's styling is okay and you don't mind that it doesn't come in many colours and that you think that its 48 grand driver rate price is actually pretty good and all that stuff, you're actually getting the best driving BYD, I think, so far. A real surprise package in that it has been finessed quietly in the background to become something really quite likeable. It's just a shame that some of the detailing could be a little bit more premium than I think that it is, but otherwise, this is a really strong car. The thing you notice immediately getting in the EV3 after being in its two Chinese competitors, and it is very much more hatch-like and is more of a traditional small SUV than the other two. We're sitting sort of slightly higher, we've got a longer roof above here, more of an awning than the other two where the windscreens are further back. The Atto 3 in particular, where you can't really feel or enjoy the sunroof because it's so far back above your head, the MG being much better at that. The second is that you really almost immediately need to disable a whole bunch of safety stuff, which you can program into the start here because it is insistent and annoying. It's the speed limit monitoring, it's the lane departure warning, which you can do on the steering wheel here, and the driver attention monitoring, which is there, and that is also annoying too. So unlike the two Chinese cars, surprisingly, there are things about the Kia's active safety that are immediately annoying, but also very easily disableable. The second is that while the seats are really quite comfortable, especially in the backrest, you don't quite get the generosity of adjustment having them both being manual, even though you can crank them all the way down. So there's a little bit of a degree of compromise. And the other is that the steering is a little bit heavier in this car. Combined with the thickness of this sort of two-spoke steering wheel, the Kia has a feeling of solidity about it. And I suppose many people, certainly more purist drivers, might like the heft in the Kia steering over the lightness of the other two, but I do prefer the MG's lightness and crispness and reactivity over the Kia's sort of slightly heavier feeling and less responsive steering. But All of this leads into where this car really surges forward, and that is just the comfort and refinement of it. The ride quality around town, especially on these 215 wide 17s, these puffier 17-inch tyres on the base model Air really do give it a terrific urban ride, so much better than the MGs, and also so much quieter, especially than the BYD, which makes this car feel elevated. It gives it this sort of premium smoothness that makes you think that you would never know that you're driving a Kia. You could essentially be in a Genesis, and yet underneath this is a Hyundai Kona EV, sort of very close relative of, but it is so much more refined and finessed and a better car than its Hyundai rival, and in this case for roughly $10,000 less drive away in the entry-level car. Unlike the other two as well, if you don't think that 436 kilometres WLTP is enough, you can option a long-range version that has 604, though that is 56,000 drive away and substantially more expensive, but a lot more range. On this test, the Kia used the least amount of energy, but it also is the least amount of real-world range, at least in the conditions we were driving in, by a slight amount. 313 kilometres versus 323 in the BYD, 341 in the MG. That's with almost identical driving, as best as we could do anyway, but their WLTPs are all within 16 kilometres of each other, so they're all really competitive. This takes 1 minute longer than the MG to charge, but again, that stuff doesn't really matter. It's more about the sort of the bomb-proof nature and flavour of the EV3. It has a solidity and a refinement that makes it feel like it can handle any surface in the interior, even the rear seat space you envision, and the packaging efficiency. For a small car, the EV3 really does pack a lot in to the real estate that it takes up. And it's also a really enjoyable car to drive too, not just because it's so comfortable, but also because it's really dynamic and really fluent, if not quite perhaps as crisp as the MG. It does have a lot more power than the MG though, and at 7.5 seconds 0 to 100, it feels faster because these skinnier tyres really do scrabble for grip. But the powertrain performance and the regenerative braking performance, we're on iPedal 3.0 now, and the Kia is clearly the best at doing all that sort of stuff. It's more that it's better at doing more things really well than being absolutely outstanding at one thing. But the combination of all these together make the EV3 feel like it's almost an EV9 in a concentrate. This is so much better than an EV5 that it's a shame that they're almost related, because this is a much better car. The biggest surprise of this test is not that there's two brand new cars here and quite an old car, it's that all three of them are actually really good cars. I would own any one of these three small electric SUVs. The BYD Atto 3 is the oldest car here, and it does show that in certain areas. It's pretty bland to look at. It has a polarizing interior, but it's a really suave drive. It's comfortable, it's well equipped. It has the best stereo here. It has a whole bunch of stuff going for it that makes me understand why so many people have bought the Atto 3 over the last 3 years, though it is a substantially better car in 2025 than it was in 2022. As for the two new cars here, they are quite different, but both of them have a huge amount of appeal. The MG S5 EV is so far beyond the ZS EV that it replaces that it isn't even worth talking about in the same sentence. It is the polar opposite of how terrible the old car was to how likeable and actually consistent the new car is. If you like the MG4 and understand how great its handling and its rear-wheel drive dynamics are, then just imagine that with that body on top, because that's exactly what you get. From the instant you sit in this MG, it is appealing, so much more than almost any other MG you can buy. But finally, to the Kia EV3, the smallest car here, but also the best packaged, with the roomiest interior. It feels the most solid on the road. Its range is roughly competitive with the other two cars. It just has so much going for it. It is more consistent at more things that it does, and its design is so persuasive that it really makes you feel like you're in a premium car and you're in a Kia. And that's the base model. There's still a long-range version of that to go that has 604 kilometres WLTP, admittedly for several $1,000s more, and then there's two more specs above that. So really, this is arguably the greatest base model you can buy right now, whereas this is also arguably the greatest MG you can buy right now, and this is the best driving BYD you can buy right now. So no one really loses here, but the Kia definitely wins. Let us know what you think in the comments. If you haven't subscribed, please do so below the video. Hit the notification bell, and thanks for watching.